Kia ora, it's Ruth here in my backyard in Christchurch, and this might just look like a piece of lawn, and that's because it is, but today this is going to become part of a new garden. Now in June this year I ended up making 4 new garden beds and thought I was done, and I got lots of comments saying before you know it you will be turning more grass into garden. I thought, no, I like grass. Well, here's the day we turn more grass into garden. I went to a garden centre during the week and found some tomatoes on reduced to clear. They're only a couple of dollars for punnets of 6 or 4. So I thought, you know, now's the time to make a new garden. So follow me as we make a new garden today. I know there's lots of ways to make new garden beds. The ones I previously have made, I made as raised garden beds. But what I decided I'd try here is just straight in the ground. And we're going to end up barking further out here as well, so I don't have grass to mow between. With it, I know there's lots of different ways of doing it. You can do the no dig where you just layer on top, but I really want to get these in now, and I want to give the roots of the tomatoes the best chance after being in some compacted lawn. So I'm going to be taking off the topsoil, doing a bit of scalping, and then digging around to start it off. Now I did one just around the corner, which I planted some beans in, and what I should have suspected, but I didn't, was how dry and hard the ground was underneath. Because it's the grass, we haven't been watering it, we haven't been doing anything to it, and so it's just bone dry. So yesterday I gave this area really good water, because when I tried to dig the last one it was so hard. So hopefully when I dig this bit today it'll be a bit easier, and then before doing anything I will then get it another big water, so that, yeah, the tomatoes have the best chance of not starting in a real dry area. So let's get digging. So what I'm actually doing, just to explain what I'm doing, is I've decided that I'm going to use the trellis as a guide, because this is going to stay here, and I want to be able to have a walking gap between the garden and the trellis, because I don't want to walk on top of the garden because that would end up compacting all the soil. So this grass here I'll either put cardboard over before I cover it or end up scalping it too, but I'm going to use a section between here and the trellis, and then I'm going to go out, I think maybe like a slight triangle shape. I thought I can have fun, there's no real rules, I can do what I want, so we'll see what the shape of this garden ends up being. Okay, edges are done. Now you may have noticed that I didn't use a string line or anything to direct where I was going. I realised that once it started, and then I thought it's a bit of an organic build, and by the time we've got mulching and the bark around, you won't really be able to tell what the shape of the garden is anyway. So now it's time to get down low and scalp and take off this top layer of grass. I have one line done. I've only got about 10 more to do because it kind of finishes just over there. We'll see how we go. But what's been really interesting is last time I did digging there was a whole lot of worms. Here I've managed to find none so far. The only thing I've found right at the end is some ants. So that really shows to me that this is some kind of, well, quite unproductive ground, only good for growing grass currently, and I'll need to put a lot of stuff in to make sure there's some lots of good food and really good soil to encourage worms to come, and also to encourage the growth of the tomatoes. So now to keep going. A little bit of a change to my phone camera because my camera died. Don't know when it died, but I just want to show you where we got to. So we've finished doing all the scalping, and Caleb came to help me, which is awesome. What we did is we then dug some holes into the ground so the water would go down. We've just filled it all up with water. And so what we're going to do now is we're just going to let it soak down for however long it takes to soak down, and maybe a little bit more, and then we're going to be adding some compost and some worm casting and some other things to it before we end up adding the tomatoes. So okay, time for my camera to die. It's on charge now, and I'll show you soon what ends up happening. It's quite exciting. The water has now all gone in, and by doing this it's made it so much easier to dig. And what I'm just going to be doing is just digging it up a bit all in this area, just to give the roots a really good chance of starting. As I said earlier, this is not the way you have to do it. Some people just layer straight on top, but as I know this is really hard ground, I'd like to give the roots the best chance to start. And look what I found. Oh, I put on the video. Another bit of path. I wonder if I'll find more. here is it, all the water it's soaked in, and with the digging I finally found my first 2 little worms. So it's good knowing there is something in the soil here, but it's also definitely showing that I'm going to need to put some more stuff in because I dug that much so far and I've only found 2 worms. So far what I've done is I've dug it all over and I've added some store-bought compost, and so now what I need to do is give it a really good water because my next step is going to be mulching it. What I've learnt from some of my other gardens that I've been adding some mulch to when the veggies are already there is it's a lot easier to mulch it first, then add holes and plant the veggies than to have the veggies already mulched or already planted and then try mulch around it. So watering first is the key because it means all the ground is already at a really awesome water level rather than being a bit dry. It's kind of moist but it could be wetter, and because the mulch acts is to retain the moisture and also kind of blocking the evaporation. So if it's already dry, there's actually no moisture to really retain. So gonna give it a really good water. We're lucky because we're in town water, so I can do that real easy, and then I'll end up getting the pea straw which I can put on top. Now I've got a massive bale of pea straw, which I'll show you in another video. Awesome. I am in love with it after only having it for about 3 weeks in the garden. It makes such a massive difference. And it comes quite compacted. So what I need to do first is tease it all apart and then put it where I want it. With my raised beds it's been good because the soil's kind of dipped down a bit, so then filled up the top with the pea straw. This is going to end up being above. We'll see what happens with the wind, but I know the birds will like it. We've seen lots of birds stealing it for their nests, but I'm happy with that. So let's fill up the garden with pea straw. The pea straw can be quite dusty, and so I'm not wearing a dust mask, but I am sitting upwind, so all the dust is flying away from me. Nearly there. Now it's time to give it another water in, so that the pea straw is now moist. So, time to water. So I'm nearly there. I have started with just grass and I've dug it in and put some compost in. I've now put the pea straw on top and watered it in. Now I have an empty bucket, and what I'm going to do is go fill it with some compost from a compost bin, some worm castings and some normal soil, and then I'll use that as a little handful for each tomato I plant in so that it's got the best chance, the best start with the best nutrients. Now I don't yet actually have a second box I can steal from, but I can steal just from what the worms have got here. I've just added some egg carton to be some carbon for the girls. The girls? I don't know. I'm used to calling them chicken girls. But what I can do is I can get down below and steal some in the layer that the girls aren't. Oh look, there are some, oh you can't even see. Look at all these worms. They are beautiful. But let's get down below where they are. Oh, these girls are really deep this time. And there you go. What I find with the worm farm is you'll find there's areas where there's heaps of worms, and then areas where there's virtually none. And now, go around to the compost bin. So as you can see, there's a little bit of everything, even a compostable coffee cup, but it's not actually ready, but I'm gonna sneak a little bit down here from the bottom, so let's see how it goes. Yep, it's pretty good compost down there. We'll just get a little bit. Oh, and there's some nice worms, which will be a great addition into the garden. Look at that. That is a beautiful colour. Hopefully the worms are okay with all this mixing. Okay, so I've got my little powerhouse, and now we can go and plant the tomatoes. It's definitely my favourite part, getting the tomatoes in the ground. Now this one here has got 4 tomatoes, and this one is a patio one, and it's a dwarf. So what I might do is put these ones in the front, and this one here is a tall one and requires staking, so I might put these further in the back, but I've got 6 of these. So what I'm going to do, they've had lots of water in them, so they've been well drunk. I'm going to first take them out of their containers and pinch the bottoms to get them out and give them a little pull. And there is lots of roots, so what I'm going to do is just kind of tease them out gently, which is really easy to do because it's got so much water around them. And then to start, I'm just going to place them where I think I want them to go. Finally, what I've been waiting for, time to get them all on the ground. And what I'll be doing the same with the other tomatoes is I'm not going to be planting them here. I'm actually going to plant them down to about here, because both of these is where roots will grow. So if I carefully nip off that one and that one, I'll get a really good root structure. They'll start looking shorter, but I can deal with that. Thanks for joining me in the creation of another garden. I'm sure this will not be the last. I'm not sure how many more we'll add, but for now we've got some happy looking tomatoes. I need to tie these up. Got one very muddy hand, one pretty clean hand, and all in all it's definitely been a successful day. I look forward to seeing how these tomatoes go. What I need to do, is tie them up, but I also have a gardening diary where I write in everything that I've planted. So I need to make sure I write that I created a new garden today, and then also what I planted and the names of these tomatoes, because otherwise I know that I forget. So thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I'll catch you next time. Merry Christmas!